Hey crafty people, welcome back to my channel, and in case you're new here, I'm Sarah, also known as Craft Nerd because I'm a nerd who loves to craft. I do paper crafting, card making, junk journaling, and mixed media art. Let's get crafting! Alright, we're back to finish up the Steampunk junk journal cover, and I found, this is some tea-dyed strip of fabric that I'm going to use for the closure. And then I just cut a piece of fabric from my stash, and I think this was cartons maybe that I picked up at a local thrift store. That is going to serve for our spine piece. What we're going to do is attach the comic book board one to it, and it's going to go like this, and we're going to sew in the signatures and then attach this down, and then these pieces will go over like so and like so. So obviously I'm not going to leave this all white like that, so we're going to get our inks out. Oh, I also found, it's the Tim Holtz Ideology. These are the little post pieces, which hopefully the post base is thick enough to go through, because the closure is going to be, I'm going to obviously put that through. I have a little bit of concern that this is going to be too thick, but if not, we'll just attach it with adhesive. And then this will go like that, and I'm going to use the foundry wax on it, and we're going to have the fabric loop through like that to serve as our closure. So we're going to set that aside, because step one is we need to ink up this fabric. And actually, before I do that, I have put together the signatures, and this is a FabiArtStudio digital kit. I'll leave links below, and they're gonna go inside like so, obviously. And there's definitely gonna be some more bulk added, because all it is the signatures. There's nothing in them yet, like no tags or pockets or anything like that. But I want to get a rough idea, because this is definitely longer than we're gonna need. What we're looking at fabric wise. So we want the closure to go like that. It's gonna wrap around and be attached, and the inside underneath this piece. So this is, as it is now, about how much we need. So let's increase that to about there. And I've got an idea for what I want to do so that this can be adjustable. So we're gonna work on that, because I also am worried it's just gonna come right off. I have an idea for that. So let's start with this piece and this piece and get out some inks. And I think our colors for this have been Rusty Hinge, which is still sitting out on my desk, Uncharted Mariner, Rusty Hinge, Salvaged Patina, and I think I had some distress inks as well that may have actually gotten put away. Yep, Salvaged Patina, Uncharted Mariner. Did I have any vintage photo? I don't remember at this point, so we're just gonna go with that, and possibly some scorched timber. And I am gonna just ink this mat, because why not? Let's do a little Oxide and a little Rusty Hinge ink and some Salvaged Patina. We're just gonna make a mess on the mat. It's been a little while since I've had some crafty time with the floor redo, so we're just gonna get our messy craft on. Oh, and I've got a dog who obviously desperately needs to be in right this second, because that's how we roll in this household. Mom starts filming, dogs need in or out. I'll be right back, and I'm gonna spray them out with water. I'm gonna spray my fabrics with a little bit of water too, because when you're working with fabric, for sure. Spraying really does help with it absorbing and spreading on the fabric. We're just gonna go like this, and rub it around and just get it inky. Got some blue on it, like some darker blue on it. Let's wipe that off. All right. And I'm not so worried about the edges because they're gonna get covered up. It's the middle that really needs the inking, because that's what you might see a little bit of through the signatures. So I think that one's good. Right, and I'm gonna set these guys aside to dry completely before we move on to the next stage. I'm gonna grab my Natural History Magazine review, it's the American Historical Review magazine that I use to help with cleanup, because why waste all this lovely ink? Okay, so while the base is, or while my fabric is drying, I am going to cover this with some foundry wax. This is a tip from Tim Holtz. This is red line tape, I think. It's from, I believe I got it at Simon Says Stamp. I will double check that and leave that info down below. And it's a heat stable tape, so I can attach my piece to, say, a popsicle stick like this, apply the foundry wax, and then use the stick to hold the piece and heat it, because with foundry wax you have to heat set the foundry wax. So I'm gonna attach that, and now I see where the liner went. It's stuck to my finger. Let's throw that out. And so now I can take the foundry wax and cover this piece. I'm just going to use my finger to kind of smooth it around so that we can transform it from silver to this coppery color. And it's Mind is the color name. Ooh, I'm just making a mess right now. I think because it's mostly dried, and in the spots that it's not dried and I keep touching it, I keep messing it up. Just to add some around the sides, and I'll do the other side as well, because obviously we want it 360. Just kind of adding that, and I'll do inside. But so that's step one, is you apply the foundry wax, and then you take a heat tool, and I'm going to grab my heat gun, which I need to plug in. And I'm just gonna hit it with the heat gun, and you can watch it like melt on, and that's what you need to set the foundry wax. And then just wait a moment while it cools off. before you touch it. Yeah, it was very, very shiny, and that was when it was still hot, and now that it is not as shiny, it's cooled off mostly. It's still a little warm, and the time it takes to cool off is going to vary depending on what you're putting it on, because like this is a metal piece, so obviously it's going to take a little bit longer than on something that was plastic, because of the properties of metal, it heats up and stays hot longer than plastic does. And yeah, I got very inky fingers now. All right, so I see a spot that needs touching up over here, and I'm just gonna add some on the inside. Don't know that I'm gonna worry too much about the inside of the smaller loop. Just added a little on there. And there's definitely a spot that needs touching up there. So we're gonna heat again. All right, I'm gonna pop that off. Hot, it's still hot. Okay, I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna let it cool the rest of the way. I'm gonna flip it and do the other side, but now that you've seen me do it, I don't know that you need to see me do the other side, just to make sure it's completely covered. And then once everything is dry, I'll come back and we'll do the next step for our fabric pieces. Okay, so we're all dry, and I want to do something else to both pieces. For this piece, I am gonna add some of the collage paper that we used for the covers, just so that it's gonna blend nicely with, you know, the covers when we stitch in our signature. So I'm gonna grab some matte medium. And a little spatula, here we go. And I think what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna attach our piece of comic book board that I covered and didn't really need to cover because I'm adding fabric to it and didn't think about that, but not a big deal. And I'm gonna kind of do my best to get that centered. And it's a little bit longer than it needs to be, but I'd rather trim up than have it be too short. So we're gonna go with like that. And then I'm gonna apply the collage paper on top. And of course, I just let my dog in and he's like, I want to go back out. And we're gonna see how well this does. I don't know that I've done this with fabric before. So the fabric may suck up our collage our matte medium. It's definitely gonna make the fabric a little stiffer than what it already is once it dries, but that should be all right. All right, I'm gonna set this aside and let it dry completely. And what I wanna do for this strip is I want to add some interest by stamping on it. Let me clean up a little bit. So we're gonna just go like this and grab some Archival ink in black soot. And I'm grabbing faded type, that's CMS 397. I'm gonna use that one. Grab a stamping block, and we're just gonna kind of stamp along here just to add a little bit more interest. And I'm going to do the other side too, because I think, yes. Yeah, because when we put it through the buckle, at least part of it's going to be flipped over. So I'm just going to stamp the other side just to make sure we've got interest everywhere. Huh. My dog wants in, so perfect timing. I'm gonna take a break, let a dog in, and once everything's dry, we'll come back and start assembling. Okay, so our piece is dry. I'm gonna trim off our excess so that we can sew in our signatures. So that's gonna go here like that. But first we're gonna sew our signatures in so that we have hidden signatures, plus sewing through 2 layers of the comic book board would not be fun. Now, for the signatures, I went ahead and created a template for sewing them in. Since this is a 1-inch spine, I cut a piece of paper that's 9 by 1 inches. And then I measured it across at a 1/4 inch, or yeah, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch. I went up about the width of my ruler and down about the width of my ruler. So those are going to be my top and bottom holes. And then I folded the paper in half to figure out the center. And so those are going to be our holes. And I am going to poke the holes in this piece first. I'm just going to clamp this on there. Just making sure it is actually lined up on a piece of comic book board. Okay. Grab a stamping mat and flip it over and use my awl to poke holes for the signatures through the comic book board. So there we go, we've got our holes poked through. Ooh, we've got a few that haven't gone all the way through. Make sure everybody's all the way through. This is going to be the last signature. So let's go ahead, and what I'm going to do is all right. Try and, because that's 9 but our signatures are only about 8.5. What I'm gonna do is kind of get this as equidistant as possible. Grab a pencil, mark there, and there, and then line that up like so. Make sure our signatures are lined up. I'm gonna mark where I'm gonna put my holes. And I'm gonna pull out, I'm gonna put a clamp on there, a clamp over here, leave this on there, pull out my bookbinding cradle. All right, so I've got my bookbinding cradle put together, and I'm ready to put the holes in the signature. That's our first signature. That did not even go straight through those properly, but that's all right. And I am gonna go ahead and sew in this first signature, and then I'm gonna do the rest of them off camera, because I'm pretty much just gonna do the same thing for each of the signatures. And I'm just using a wax thread I picked up on Amazon. And I'm leaving the thread on the spool because it just makes it easier. You don't have to worry about pulling it all the way through, which I tend to do. I'm just gonna make sure I have at least 3 times my book height's thread pulled off the spool, because that'll make it easier to do this. And I'm gonna go through the center hole, through my spine, gonna go through the top hole on my spine and the top hole in my signature. And this is where I invariably have issues with going through. And that ended up not being where the hole was. I think we're okay. Hopefully I'm on screen. And then through the bottom hole. And then back through the center hole. Now I'm gonna make sure, at this point I can take these guys off, that I am pulling this out of the way, because you don't want to go through that thread when you go back through the center, because then you can't tighten it. So I am gonna go through the center of the spine. And then go through my signature, holding that kind of taut so that I keep it out of the way, hopefully. But here's where I tend to, like, I watch people binding their journals on YouTube and they just like boom, boom, boom. That has never been me, and maybe there'll come a point in time where I can do this really quickly, but I find I struggle. And that's what you don't want to do. You don't want the needle going through your thread. So we're gonna pull back and adjust our thread and make sure we don't go through. All right, oops. All right, now we just need to tighten our thread. Now you want to be sure, oh, nuts. I went through at the very beginning. All right, let's try this again. So yeah, if you sew through your thread, you cannot tighten everything up properly. So let's do this one more time. And this is why I tend not to bind my books on camera, because I always end up struggling more when I try and do it on camera than if I just do it on my own. All right. That is off to the side. Okay, we are not going through the thread right now. Let's just make sure we don't do it as we go through our pages. There we go. Okay. I think we should be good. There we go. Now, as I was saying, you want to pull it taut, but not so tight that you start ripping the pages. And let's just go ahead and tie this off. We're gonna do one knot. Two and 3 knots, just to be on the safe side. I'm gonna end up cutting some of this off because I've got too much, so let's cut that there, and then I'll just trim that off and set that aside. So there's the last signature for our 3 signatures in, and that's the 3-hole pamphlet stitch. And I probably could have pulled it tighter, but it shouldn't be an issue because we're gonna glue this in. I always end up doing that. I think I've got it tight, and then I look back and I'm like, oh, it's a little loose. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and sew in the other 3 signatures, and then we'll attach it and finish off our cover. Okay, so I've got all 3 signatures sewn in, and we are ready to attach this into our cover. I'm thinking I may want to see about attaching this piece first, just because it'll be easier to manipulate things before I add the signatures. So I'm gonna pull out my mouse pad again, grab my awl, and poke a hole through the center of everything that hopefully there's enough room to poke this through and that it'll be tall enough. Fingers crossed. I think the problem I am hitting is that it's wider than the hole in the centerpiece. Is that true? Uh-oh. I think what I need to do is this. Ooh, I may be gluing that guy back on. Let's see what happens if we do this. Will it fit through? Oh, no. Oh, man. The hole's not big enough. Right now I can't tell. Hold on, let's see. Maybe it's the glue's in the way. Let's try that. 'Cause I'm pretty sure I would have checked to make sure it fit through. Wondering, can I screw it on? Come on. Come on. Oh man. Oh, I'm super bummed about this. All right, I am gonna go pull out my gears and see if I've got one that has a bigger hole in the center that I can put in there, because I don't think I have anything I can use to kind of scrape the inside of that out and get it in there. Unfortunately, it's got me very, very bummed right now. All right, I will be right back. All right, I found one that works. So I've got this one that fits right through, and I like how it works with the gear below, which was another consideration. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of FabiArtStudio just to make sure it stays in place. Let's do it like that. So its spokes are not in the same spot as the spokes on there. And so we're just gonna tighten that down. And so our ring, which I seem to have misplaced, here it is. So for our closure, we're gonna go like this and like this. And that will go like that. And we're gonna flip this over because I had some issues when I put the second layer on. Oof, it was not happy. I kept dropping it. It kept falling off the stick and landing on the mat and made a bit of a mess. So that will be our closure. Now, I've noticed this keeps coming a little loose. So what I wanna do is add small eyelet here, and then add a couple more on the piece and use a brad so it can be adjustable. So give me a sec, it'll make sense. I'm gonna put a hole there. Eyelet, and I'm just using my crocodile to set the eyelet, an eyelet there. So we've got the eyelet in there. And then what I'm gonna do is put a few eyelets in on here, just so, and I'll show you in a sec what that's gonna enable us to do. So let's just put a couple eyelets in. Then we can take a brad and go through like that. And then when I add a few more on, you can shorten the strap. So let's add a few more. I think this is probably, let's put our signature in place. So if I glue that there, see it's too loose. Let's glue it down. That's going to give us a better idea of where we need to put our little braces. All right, so go like so and put a little FabiArtStudio down. And I probably should do it more in line with where the thing is instead of just randomly. That would help. I realized I was looking over here. I was like, that I'm putting glue here, but it's there. Yeah, should do that in line with that. Woo! So glue that down. Now let's go ahead and glue our signature in. I'm gonna add FabiArtStudio all down here and here and over here. And I'm gonna grab one of my little silicone spatulas to kind of smooth the glue out. And we're gonna stick this piece down. Fold it over, and I'm realizing now as I did this, I probably should have wrapped around the excess that I had so that I have pretty edges. Let's see. Can I fix that now? All right. As I'm realizing I should have done this, I have a piece left over that I can wrap around. Grab scissors. I'm gonna snip off that bit, and we're gonna glue this on. So we're gonna go like this so that we have finished edges. And of course I've got a dog who now desperately wants to come in the house. All right, let's do that. I think what I'm gonna do is just put a clamp on that for a sec. And then do the same thing pretty much down here so that I've got nice finished edges. Glue on this piece and just glue it on. All right, let's put a clamp on that for a minute, and I'll go let a dog in since the other one now wants in. All right, that should be good enough to hold it in place because we're gonna be adding more glue. All right, this time we're gonna try going this way and see if I can get this sucker glued in. So I'm just adding a whole bunch of FabiArtStudio. I think the problem is I have a tendency to want to start moving stuff around before the FabiArtStudio has had sufficient amount of time to dry, because it takes a little bit longer than It's like I had a moment I was like, please tell me I'm gluing these in the right way. I'm gonna go ahead and glue this side in the rest of the way. Alright, and we're gonna go ahead and do this side. Alright, I think we're alright to glue this piece down, which will cover up any messiness along here. Just gonna add a little extra glue just to make life a little easier by getting that to stay down. And then we're gonna glue this into place. There. Let's go on over here. I'm just gonna be careful where I put the clamps with the front cover. Okay, so while that's drying, we're gonna do some adjusting for our closure. So that's probably should have, because that's way too long. Ugh. Alright, I'm gonna have a bit of a think to figure out how we're gonna get this to work. Okay, so I added a couple more eyelets so that it's keeping it closed, and let's take these guys off. Right now, and this hasn't been filled, like I haven't put in any pockets or anything, so it's definitely going to expand. And I think what I'm going to do is wait until I have some more stuff in here before I add any more eyelets onto this. So right now it's good where it is. It's keeping the journal closed, and we can add additional brads to add for adjustments once I add more stuff in, because this is definitely going to get thicker once I add some stuff inside. And I think everything's down and it's opening nicely. And we'll do a quick flip through and you can see where I'm at on this guy. This is a FabiArtStudio journal kit, and I realized as I was sewing them in that I had meant to like stencil and do stuff so the backgrounds weren't white on these pages, and completely forgot before sewing them in. So I'll have to do something with those. This is by Abroutique. It's another digital. And this is my Porch Prints. And I think those are, oh, and this is, I think it's Oxide Studio. This I created on Math Make Monday video, I think. I'll leave a link to that down below. And actually, I'll leave my Steampunk playlist link down below, because that's got all of the steampunk related stuff I've made so far in that playlist. And so this is an Abroutique. That's the same FabiArtStudios. And so I've got some coffee dyed papers in here and some vintage and possibly antique pages in here. I don't know about that. This came from a vintage book about clocks that I picked up at my local thrift store, so I put those in there. So there's the first signature. Here's our second signature. Again, forgot to do anything on the back of those pages. So very annoyed with myself, because it would be so much easier to do it before sewing in. And then again, that page that we did in the video. More of that vintage clock book and some vintage music paper. And that's coffee dyed or tea dyed. I forget which. And this is a coffee filter. The second signature, and here is the third. So yeah, this needs filling up. There's nothing in it. So there we go. That's our steampunk journal cover with signature sewn in and our closure added on. And so I'll be back playing with this in the near future. We'll fill it up with all of the goodies that need to go in this journal. I'm not sure exactly when that video is going to go up, because I'm going to be doing some Christmas in July stuff now that it is July. But this is still a work in progress, and we will work on it at some point. So that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please do all the things that lets YouTube know you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me a comment down below. Thanks for joining me, and happy crafting.